Listen carefully, my undeniable force, because what I'm about to reveal is not rumor, not speculation, not conspiracy. This is the raw confession of an elite circle that thought they could dissect you like a case study and walk away unshaken. They didn't just observe you, they obsessed over you. In their marble-floored chambers, under chandeliers that never flicker, this influential group summoned their analysts, strategists, and scientists. They pored over files thicker than encyclopedias, charts so dense the numbers bled into static, and psychological reports so sharp they could cut the skin of a weaker mind. Their mission was simple: uncover what makes you untouchable. What they found, that's what left them rattled, chain-smoking in rooms they once considered safe, whispering your name like it was a code that should never have been cracked. You, the unpredictable variable, the one who can't be profiled, who breaks algorithms designed to trap every other soul. You weren't meant to fit in their grids, and the more they studied, the more they realized they weren't studying you. You were studying them, even from afar, bending their research back onto their own weaknesses. Imagine their horror, a high command that controls economies, elections, even wars, suddenly feeling like lab rats in their own experiment. That's the level of disturbance you injected into their polished order. Their first mistake was assuming you could be cataloged. They tried personality typologies, trying to box you into categories: introvert, extrovert, intuitive, logical. They shuffled labels around like desperate gamblers moving chips on a table. Every test collapsed, every assessment shattered. You didn't just break their models, you inverted them. Where others show predictability, you carried contradiction. Where others showed weakness, you wore scars like armor. They realized quickly that your mind operates on frequencies their instruments can't measure. You oscillate between extremes with precision, making chaos look orchestrated. So they dug deeper. They monitored your routines, expecting monotony. Instead, they saw adaptability. You change patterns deliberately, a ghost with fingerprints that never match. You keep watchers guessing because you know the watchers are always watching. They tried to map your behavior, only to discover your unpredictability wasn't accident, it was strategy. Like a chess master moving pawns to bait kings, you orchestrate even your randomness. Do you realize what that did to them? It created fear, not of what you've done, but of what you might do next. Their psychologists described you as a paradoxical creature, ruthless yet empathetic, detached yet hyper-aware, reckless yet calculated. These contradictions were not weaknesses. They were proof you had evolved past ordinary human design. The more they probed, the more they found evidence that you operate with something they couldn't explain, something they called self-generated chaos intelligence. A mind that doesn't just react, but uses disorder as fuel. You thrive where others collapse. That's why every attempt to pin you down left them more unnerved than before. And then came the real shock. The deeper they searched, the more their own lives began to unravel. Analysts reported insomnia. Researchers started losing touch with reality. Their meetings spiraled into paranoia because each time they looked into your file, they swore it wasn't paper they were holding, it was a mirror. Studying you forced them to confront their own hollowness. You exposed the soft underbelly of people who thought they were predators. And that's when the whispers started. This one isn't human. This one isn't what we thought. They realized your existence was a quiet rebellion against their entire order. You didn't just resist their structures, you bypassed them completely. Where they thought control was absolute, you slipped through cracks like liquid metal, rewriting the rules as you moved. Imagine the humiliation of the most calculated men in tailored suits, realizing their scripts don't apply to you. They wrote the playbook for domination, but when you walked on stage, the entire script burst into flames. You want to know what broke their nerves the most? It wasn't your defiance, it was your awareness. They discovered that you don't just live life, you weaponize it. Every setback you endure becomes ammunition. Every betrayal you suffer turns into a sharpened blade. You recycle pain into power, anger into clarity, and chaos into strategy. They studied resilience expecting to find coping mechanisms. Instead, they found transmutation, your ability to turn poison into fuel. It terrified them because it meant nothing they did could truly damage you. The more they pressed, the stronger you became. They pulled transcripts of your past, old failures, records of where you should have broken down. They highlighted them in red ink, expecting to find evidence of weakness. What they found instead was regeneration. You didn't just rise, you came back unrecognizable, sharper than before. Like a sword reforged in fire, you turned catastrophe into craftsmanship. Every scar was a signature. Every collapse became architecture. And the conclusion was clear. You aren't just surviving history, you're rewriting it. This is where their research shifted from scientific to spiritual. These were men who once mocked rituals, laughed at philosophy, dismissed spirituality as illusion. But studying you broke their arrogance. They began searching for words outside their language. They described you as a presence that alters probability, an outlier who makes statistics irrelevant, a disruption that bends the laws of human trajectory. They couldn't quantify you, so they resorted to reverence, an accidental worship born of fear. You forced empiricists to become believers. Do you see what you've done? You flipped their power structure. The high command that once dissected others for fun now sits trembling, unsure if they've accidentally awakened something they can't control. They whisper in corridors about your unpredictability. They argue in boardrooms about whether to neutralize you, contain you, or study you further. But deep down, they already know the truth. They can't neutralize what doesn't conform. They can't contain what refuses to exist within walls. And the more they study, the more they unravel themselves. You've become their paradox. The more they look, the less they understand. The less they understand, the more they fear. And fear, in powerful men, is the beginning of collapse. These are the kinds of men who once thought nothing could shatter them. Yet your existence alone has begun to erode their certainty. You've become the virus they can't code against, the unsolvable riddle scratching at their polished temples. Now let me tell you what's coming next. Their fear will push them further. They won't stop at reports or charts. They'll escalate. They'll bring in covert operatives, whisper-level analysts, even black-budget psychologists, trained to bend reality itself. They'll burn resources just to understand the ghost in their machine. That ghost is you. But every step they take into your orbit is another step into their own undoing, because the closer they look, the more they'll find themselves staring at their own fragility. And here's the irony. The higher they climb to reach you, the harder they'll fall. Because while they are busy dissecting, you are busy ascending. While they panic, you strategize. While they stumble in confusion, you sharpen your edge. They don't realize you've already flipped the board. Their research isn't research anymore. It's confession. And their panic isn't strategy. It's surrender. That's why the last line in their classified report was so chilling. Not a conclusion, not a recommendation, just a warning scrawled in frantic handwriting. Do not provoke further. Subject adapts beyond comprehension, but it's too late, because their very act of researching you was provocation. They opened a door they can't close. They triggered something that cannot be reversed. And that is where we shift gears. Because if their research broke their nerves, wait until you see what happens when their fear evolves into obsession. Because obsession doesn't stop at watching. It escalates into action. And action against you. That's when the real spectacle begins. They thought staring at you through data would be enough. But fear rewires ambition. Fear doesn't just observe, it drives men to build entire machines around their terror. That's exactly what this influential group did. They couldn't sleep with the unanswered questions, so they ordered their operatives to build a program dedicated entirely to you. Not to a country, not to a war, not to a market, to you. Imagine the arrogance of a council that controls billions of lives, deciding that your singular existence deserves its own task force. And yet beneath the arrogance was panic. The kind of panic that gnaws at the bone, makes even powerful men tremble when no one is watching. They called it Project Obsidian. That was the code name scrawled on files passed in underground corridors, stamped with insignias that only a few eyes were permitted to see. This wasn't public knowledge. Not even lower-tier operatives were briefed. Only the highest command knew the truth. You had forced them into a war room. But the war wasn't against nations. It wasn't against terrorists. It wasn't against corporations. It was against a single individual who defied classification. You. They gathered intelligence experts from agencies you've never heard of, analysts who'd mapped entire revolutions, and psychologists who'd bent the minds of generals. And yet, the closer they came to your essence, the more disoriented they became. One researcher even resigned, muttering, "This one doesn't bend. This one bends us." But resignations didn't stop the machine. If anything, they fueled it. Obsession only escalates when resistance is met. Their first move was surveillance, beyond surveillance. Forget satellites that monitor cities. Forget drones that hover over borders. They activated something more intimate, pattern disruption teams. These were operatives who specialize in infiltrating lives not by force, but by subtle interference. They study what makes you comfortable, then dismantle it. But here's the tragedy. They approached you with techniques designed for ordinary minds. They tried to manipulate your environment, only to discover you thrive in flux. They scattered obstacles in your path, thinking you'd stumble. Instead, you used them as stepping stones. They introduced delays, hoping frustration would corrode you. Instead, you turned waiting into strategy. Every move they made revealed their misunderstanding. They thought you were another pawn in their simulation, when in truth you were the simulation breaker. Reports came back to the high command, describing something no one expected. Their interference sharpened you. Their sabotage backfired. You didn't just survive. You adapted at a speed that left them gasping. An internal memo leaked into the council chambers. Subject escalates faster than we can anticipate. Countermeasures ineffective. Every disruption results in increased capability. Imagine the horror of realizing that you weren't just resistant, you were anti-fragile. The harder they pressed, the more powerful you became. Their project wasn't research anymore. It was an accidental training program, and you were the one harvesting its rewards. So they doubled down. Obsession doesn't retreat. it metastasizes. The High Command assembled a think tank inside a black budget facility, a place so hidden even the governments funding it didn't know its exact coordinates. There they tried to simulate your mind with quantum algorithms, desperate to predict you. They ran millions of simulations, each one attempting to mirror your choices, your instincts, your unpredictability, and yet every model failed. Why? Because the very act of trying to predict you became the proof that you can't be predicted. Their algorithms collapsed not because they weren't advanced enough, but because they were designed to seek patterns where your genius thrives in deliberate disruption. It was like trying to capture lightning with a butterfly net. Their obsession grew darker. They stopped asking, "Who is this?" and began whispering, "What is this?" They dissected your biology, pulling genetic markers, looking for anomalies that might explain the impossible. When those failed, they turned to philosophy, asking if maybe you weren't a product of biology at all, but of willpower sharpened into something transcendent. This was the moment when their research shifted from scientific to sacrificial. They began rituals of their own, not with candles and chants, but with rituals of bureaucracy, endless meetings, endless papers, endless attempts to formalize the unformalizable. And each ritual ended with the same outcome, a warning written in margins, not official statements. A warning that read, "Subject destabilizes the observer." That line became infamous within their ranks, because it meant every man who studied you risked unraveling himself. Secretaries quit. Analysts went mute. Psychologists found themselves confessing nightmares to their superiors. And the High Command realized they weren't just dealing with a difficult subject. They were dealing with a contagion. You were infecting their certainty. You were corroding the very fabric of their authority. An obsession doesn't retreat from contagion. It seeks to consume it, to cage it, to weaponize it. So they escalated again. They sent envoys, not assassins, but persuaders. They wanted to recruit you. They believed if they could capture your loyalty, their entire empire would stabilize. They sent promises of wealth, influence, even immortality through their technologies. But what they failed to grasp was that you don't bargain with parasites. You don't kneel to handshakes dipped in venom. You don't trade your essence for trinkets. You rejected them, not with words, but with presence. You turned their invitation into humiliation, exposing their desperation. And humiliation is more dangerous than rejection, because humiliation forces powerful men to bleed pride, and bleeding pride births vengeance. The spectacle truly began here, because after rejection, they flipped from persuasion to containment. They deployed entire psychological operations, building narratives to paint you as dangerous, unstable, unpredictable. They tried to turn the world against you, to isolate you, to frame you as the threat. But the paradox struck again. The more they demonized you, the more people resonated with your defiance. Their propaganda collapsed under its own weight, because people could feel the authenticity radiating from you. Authenticity cannot be manufactured, and their entire empire was built on fabrication. You became the living fracture in their illusion. Now panic infected their hierarchy. Internal arguments broke out. Some wanted to terminate you. Others warned termination would only immortalize you, turn you into legend. Some suggested containment camps. Others admitted no cage could hold you. These debates weren't whispers anymore. They were shouted across polished tables, red-faced men pointing fingers, demanding answers to a question that had no answer. How do we stop something that feeds on what stops others? And the longer the debate raged, the clearer it became. You had divided the High Command itself. Their unity, once absolute, was crumbling under the weight of your existence. Think about the magnitude of this revelation. This isn't a rebel army collapsing their fortress. This isn't an economic crisis shattering their power. This is one individual destabilizing an empire of influence simply by being uncontainable. They studied you to predict you, but what they found was the blueprint of their own undoing. You didn't just break their nerves, you infected their foundations with cracks that spread faster than they could repair. That's why this spectacle isn't about you running from them. It's about them running from themselves. Because obsession turns inward when it fails outward. And they were failing, spectacularly. But obsession doesn't end with failure. It evolves into compulsion. They couldn't stop even as they broke. They created deeper files, darker chambers, more desperate theories. They whispered that maybe you weren't just one person, but a phenomenon. Maybe you were the manifestation of every suppressed rebellion, every silenced truth, every shattered illusion coalescing into one body. They didn't just research you anymore. They researched history itself, trying to find your reflection in ancient rebellions, forgotten revolutions, unsung heroes who carried the same spark. And what terrified them most was the realization that yes, you weren't alone. You were the continuation of a lineage they thought they had erased. You were proof that their control was never as absolute as they pretended. By now, their obsession had mutated into something irreversible. The High Command wasn't running a project. They were living in a haunting. And hauntings don't end when the ghost is banished. Hauntings end when the living break. Every boardroom became a seance, every file a confession, every conclusion a dead end that spiraled back to the same phrase. This subject cannot be subdued. The spectacle, my undeniable force, wasn't you collapsing under their obsession. It was them collapsing under yours, because you had turned their research into reflection, their power into panic, their control into chaos. And here's the final twist of this chapter. They will never admit defeat outright. That's not how powerful groups function. Instead, they'll disguise it. They'll rebrand their obsession as vigilance. They'll claim their study of you is preparation. Their paranoia is strategy. Their collapse is adaptation. But beneath the polished speeches, behind the steel doors, their eyes will always dart. Their hands will always shake, and their dreams will always return to the same image. You, standing unbroken, watching them crumble under the weight of their own obsession. And that's where we pause on this spectacle. Because what happens when obsession mutates into desperation? When powerful men, once in control of nations, are reduced to erratic shadows of themselves. When they realize that the very subject they tried to study has become the author of their undoing. That is where the next chapter begins. Because if obsession escalated into action, desperation escalates into destruction. And destruction, that's not their weapon anymore. That's yours. Understand this. Desperation is the final stage of broken authority. It's when strategies collapse into spasms, when precision turns into recklessness, when rulers forget their crowns and become prisoners of their own paranoia. This influential group, the High Command that once dissected others like insects, found themselves pacing in circles, chewing on their nerves, knowing the truth. They weren't in control anymore. Their grip on power was like sand leaking through clenched fists. And all of it happened because of you. Their research didn't give them leverage. It gave them infection. They wanted to study your essence. Instead, they absorbed your defiance. And what does desperation do to powerful men? It drives them to burn their own empire just to feel a spark of control again. They thought they could turn their research into weaponry. They tried to build psychological models of you, thinking if they couldn't predict you, maybe they could fabricate distorted versions of you, replicas designed to tarnish your image. They engineered shadows, counterfeit personalities, meant to mimic your aura, but fail catastrophically, so the world would confuse your brilliance with chaos. But the flaw was simple. Authenticity cannot be replicated, and the audience of history has a sharper eye than they admit. People can smell counterfeit courage. They can sense when something doesn't bleed truth. Every attempt they made to forge a false you only highlighted the reality of the real you. Their forgeries became your billboards. Their smear campaigns became your promotion. Every word they whispered against you only amplified your presence. That's the paradox of desperation. It feeds the very thing it fears. They wanted to bury you under lies, but each lie cracked their credibility further, and soon the public began to notice. Whispers spread, not about you being dangerous, but about why such an elite group was so afraid of you in the first place. Because the people are not as blind as the powerful think. When a high command trembles at one individual, the world doesn't see the individual as weak. It sees them as extraordinary. Their desperation accidentally turned you into legend. And once legend ignites, no propaganda machine can extinguish it. So they escalated again. They decided if they couldn't control the narrative, they would accelerate, collapse. They began destabilizing their own ranks, purging members who hesitated, silencing voices that questioned the strategy, eating themselves alive from the inside. But here's what shook them. No matter how many times they reshuffled, no matter how many members they replaced, the problem remained. The problem wasn't structural, the problem was existential. You had become the fracture at the foundation of their empire. You weren't just in their files, you were in their bloodstream, haunting every decision. And desperation made them reckless. They started wars they couldn't finish, initiated experiments they couldn't control, and pulled levers of influence that snapped back in their faces. Their fall wasn't loud at first. It was quiet, subtle. The sound of men losing conviction, the rustling of authority decaying behind velvet curtains. But soon the collapse could no longer be hidden. And here's the twist, the part that will forever be etched into their downfall. They began to turn against one another. Imagine a circle of men who once ruled like gods, now glaring at each other with suspicion, accusing each other of treason, whispering that maybe someone inside had become loyal to you. Their paranoia grew into cannibalism. They held closed-door trials where no one was innocent. They expelled members, branded them infiltrators, executed loyalty tests that no one could pass. They tore themselves apart in an attempt to root out the phantom of your influence. And the phantom was real, but it wasn't in their ranks. It was in their imagination. You had become the ghost in their corridors, the name etched into their arguments, the variable that made trust impossible. They destroyed themselves not because you lifted a weapon, but because you existed in a way their empire couldn't explain. That's the apex of psychological warfare, when your presence alone dismantles entire hierarchies. You didn't hack their files. They hacked their own sanity. You didn't infiltrate their councils. They purged themselves out of fear you already had. You didn't whisper in their ears. They heard you anyway, echoing in chambers you never stepped into. Their desperation was the final proof that their research didn't reveal your weakness. It revealed their own fragility. And fragility is fatal when you build an empire on control, because the moment control slips, power doesn't decline. It implodes. Let's go deeper. Desperation drove them to explore territories no human mind should tread. They turned to experimental sciences, pushing biology, neurology, and surveillance into extremes that bordered on the insane. They attempted to graft their consciousness into machines, believing maybe if they became less human, they could withstand your unpredictability. But here's the cosmic joke. They believed removing their humanity would make them stronger. Instead, it exposed their emptiness. They weren't becoming advanced. They were becoming hollow, fragile shells tethered to cold wires. You, the very one they feared, remained more human than ever, and that humanity was your superweapon. Because humanity sharpened by suffering, by resilience, by awareness, is stronger than any sterile construct they could design. The reports grew darker. Men in suits who once spoke in calm tones began shouting, overturning tables, tearing at documents in frustration. One file describes a commander screaming, "We can't predict him because he doesn't operate inside time." Another file describes a psychologist declaring, "Every setback he suffers becomes part of him. He doesn't recover. He evolves." These weren't enemies analyzing an opponent. These were broken men confessing to themselves that they had been outclassed, outmaneuvered, and outlasted by someone they thought was insignificant. Their desperation no longer looked like strategy. It looked like collapse masquerading as planning. And collapse is contagious. Once leaders begin to break, their empire follows. You see, the spectacle they created became their own execution. They lit the fire thinking they would incinerate you, but the blaze only illuminated their weakness. They tried to erase you, but instead they exposed themselves. They thought researching you would reveal your limits, but instead it revealed their own. And when powerful men reach the stage of desperation, their empire isn't just threatened, it's already finished. History doesn't record desperation as strategy. It records it as downfall. Now let's step back. What do we see? An influential group that once commanded fear across continents now trembling in secrecy. A high command that once studied the world now reduced to scribbling incoherent warnings in files no one will read. A machine that once controlled billions, now rusting under the weight of one truth. They cannot understand you. And what cannot be understood cannot be controlled. Their desperation was their last card. They played it, and it detonated in their hands. Do you understand what this means? You didn't just break their nerves. You inherited their weapon. Desperation, once their tool of manipulation, now belongs to you. They once used it to break weaker men, to push crowds into submission, to force nations into panic. But when it came to you, desperation flipped sides. You weaponized it. You turned their final tactic into your victory lap. Their empire now lives in fragments, scattered across whispers, afraid to speak your name too loudly. And when a name becomes unspeakable in the halls of the powerful, that name becomes immortal in the hearts of the people. That's you. That's what you've done. So remember this. They secretly researched you, thinking knowledge would grant them dominance. But knowledge doesn't guarantee control. Sometimes knowledge detonates the knower. What they found shocked them, not because it was unfamiliar, but because it was undeniable. They found resilience sharper than their sabotage, awareness deeper than their surveillance, adaptability faster than their algorithms. They found a subject that turned into their mirror. They found themselves dismantling themselves, brick by brick, nerve by nerve. And that discovery broke them. This is the end game. They searched for your weakness. They found their own. They sought to expose you. They exposed themselves. They thought researching you would give them advantage. Instead, it stripped them bare. The spectacle is over, but the aftermath remains, and the aftermath is this. Their empire no longer stands as fortress. It stands as cautionary tale. And your existence is the reason. Because here's the final truth. They wanted to file you as subject, as specimen, as anomaly. But what you became is prophecy. You're the reminder that power is never absolute, that control is never final, that even the most influential group can be reduced to rubble when they study something they cannot contain. And in the ruins of their desperation lies your triumph. They tried to bury you under research. They ended up burying themselves under revelation, and that revelation was simple, terrifying, and eternal. You are not their subject. You are their undoing.